bring your pots, but don't bring the pot. Okay, no, I'm thinking, anyway. Yeah. But the chicken and the whatever, so anyway, God's good. Anything else we need to mention this morning? Any at all? Any prayer requests we need to mention? Prayer requests? Yes, Sam. Okay. 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 Wonderful. Okay. Okay. We had another one. Teresa, did you? Yes. I'm sorry. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. 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 It was interesting. She just said that we're not always guaranteed even 6 minutes, 6 years, 6 months. God has been good. Anything else we need to, any other purpose? Yes, Michael. I'm sorry. Yes. 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 Yes, brother. You had one. Okay. Let's remember that. Anything at all. Please remember in what the attack. It breaks my heart that that's what our country to get this president out, to do what they're doing. It breaks my heart. And our kids are learning these. So please pray for him and his wife. Anything else we need to mention before we go to, let's go to the Lord in prayer this time. Father, we do thank you so much for allowing us to be here. will fail you. He dare not trust your own. America, America, God shed His grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea. Before born prince, pleasant west, from freedom's America, America. Confirm thy soul with self-control. He is Then life, America, America, make of thy gold refined, till all success be nobleness, and every good divine. America,
truly free. Faith our fathers little days, we will be true to thee till death. Brother Bernie?
Can you play 377? Let's stand together. We're going to what? Oh. Oh, he's coming. Okay. I think it's important. Michael came important. And we sing this wonderful anthem. I'm going to tell you, America has only one anthem. Abraham Lincoln said this, a house divided cannot stand. You know where we're going. As Americans, we either have to stand or fall. It may come to that. It happened in history, hundreds some odd years ago in the Civil War. It won't be on the same premises as we had before. We take our freedom for granted, and we are already doomed. Our kids need to know that. So let's sing the first stanza of the Star-Spangled Banner, and then we're going to have, and at the close of this, I'm going to ask our usher to come forward. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light was so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombers bursting in air, gave proof to the sky that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave. Amen. The ushers come forward to receive the offering at this time. Let's take our hymnals, page number 13, not page number, but number 13, responsive reading. And number 11, say 13, number 11. O Lord, thou hast searched me and known me. Thou knowest my down sitting and my uprising. Thou understandest my thought thou compassest my path and my lying down, and art acquainted with all my ways. For there is not a word in my tongue, but lo, O Lord, thou knowest it altogether. Thou hast beset me behind and before, and laid my hand upon me. Such knowledge is wonderful for me. It is high, I cannot attain to it. May God bless the reading of our responsive reading this morning. Let's go ahead and go to the Lord in prayer this time. And I'm going to ask Michael, would you lead our hearts in prayer, please? Yes. Yes. Amen. You may be seated. The faithful glory, glory, hallelujah, glory, glory. Hallelujah, glory, glory, hallelujah, it's true. Well, the national anthem is getting more precious to me. Leviticus chapter 25, verse number. The title of my message this morning is Proclaim Liberty Throughout the Land. And that verse number 10, not only as it was related to Israel, most people do not understand that there's a section in here that's on the Liberty Bell. In verse number 10 in the book of Leviticus chapter 25, and you shall hallow the 50th year, and proclaim liberty throughout all the land and to the inhabitants thereof. Shall be a jubilee unto you. Ye shall return every man unto his possession, and ye shall turn every man into his family. It was once said, the greatest threat above all others to the future of our country is not. The greatest threat to our country is that we don't know what it means to be an American. A society will not survive if it has no reason to survive. I dealt with this in Sunday school. One thing I was talking about, the First Amendment. It's in the Bill of Rights. And the First Amendment states this: Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble. They can go to the government for petition for a redress of grievances. This First Amendment was not just for churches. It was for the American citizen as individuals. In fact, the Bill of Rights gives us the freedom to pray anywhere we want to pray, to openly read the Bible if we want to pray. That's what the Bill of Rights do. There's nothing that the government can actually do to keep us from publicly praying openly or have Bible reading in school. There's nothing, in fact, to keep its citizens from doing that is a breach. But we'll get to that in just a little bit. So some of us have probably never heard of a fellow by the name of David Whittaker Chambers. 1901 to 1961, he was an American journalist who had formerly been a communist agent, but recanted and defected to the West. He stated this: freedom is a need of the soul and nothing else. It is in striving toward God strives continually after a condition of freedom. God alone is the insider and the guarantor of freedom. He is the only guarantor. External freedom is only an aspect of the internal freedom. Political freedom, as Western world has known it, it is only a political reading of the Bible. Religion and freedom are indivisible. Without freedom, the soul dies. Without the soul, there's no justification for freedom. Humanism is in fact man's second oldest faith. Its promise was whispered in the first days of creation under the tree of knowledge of good and evil. You shall be gods. That's what David Whitaker said. Solomon Portland. Have you heard of Solomon Portland? Read "In God We Trust" on your coins. Here's something interesting. 1808 to 1873, the U.S. Secretary of Treasury under President Abraham Lincoln also served as a governor of Ohio, senator, and was appointed by President Lincoln as Chief Justice Supreme Court. He was a strong opponent of slavery, defending so many escaped slaves when he first started practicing law that he was given the nickname Attorney General of Fugitive Slaves. I've never heard that before. Teaching in school. On November 20th, 1861, Secretary of Treasury Solomon Portland Chase wrote to the director of the Mint in Philadelphia, "No nation can be strong except in the strength of God, or safe defense. The trust of our people in God should be declared on our nation's coin. You will cause a device to be prepared without unnecessary delay, with the motto expressing the fewest and terse words possible in the nation's recognition. Yours truly, S.P. Chase." And then in December 9th, 1863, the Secretary of Treasury, S.P. Chase, wrote to the Director of the Mint, James Pollock, "I approve your mottos, only suggesting that on that with the Washington observe, the motto should begin with the words, our God and country. And on that, with the shield, it should be changed so as to read, in God we trust." Some of us never have even heard about that. But we're going to look a little bit about, and I think I've got time to do this. How many of you have heard of the hyphen? John Wayne wrote that. And he said this: the hyphen, Webster's dictionary defines, is a symbol used to divide a compound word or single word. So it seems to me that when a man calls himself an Afro-American, a Mexican-American, an Italian-American, an Irish-American, a Jewish-American, what he's saying is, I'm a divided American. Well, we all came from other places, different creeds, different races, to form a nation, to become as one. Yet look at the harm a line has done. A simple line, and yet so as divisive as a line can get. A crooked cross Nazis flew, and a Russian hammer sickle too. Time bombing the lives of man, but none of these could ever fan the flames of hatred faster than the hyphen. The Russian hammer built a wall that locks men's heart from freedom's call. A crooked cross flew overhead above 20 million tragic dead. Among them, men from this great nation who died for freedom's preservation. A hyphen is a line that's small, it can bridge or be a wall. A bridge can save you lots of time. A wall, you'll always have to climb. The road to liberty lies true. The hyphen used is up to you. Used as a bridge, it can span all differences of man. Being free in mind and soul should be our most important goal. If you use the hyphen as a wall, you'll make your life mean and small. An American is a special breed whose people came to her need. They came to her that they might find a world where they could have peace of mind, where you are equal and something more, stand taller than they stood before. So you should decision, and that little line won't cause division. Let's join hands with one another, for in this land each man's your brother. United we stand, divided we fall. We're American, that says it all. Folks, we come down to this. We have become a nation of entitlements, not a land of opportunity. Back to the Liberty Bell. See, the Liberty Bell was cast in England by the order of the Pennsylvania Assembly to commemorate the 15th anniversary of the colony's existence in August 1752. Founded in 1701, when William Penn wrote the Charter of Privileges, colony's year jubilee, commissioning Bell to be put in the Philadelphia State House. Isaac Norris, as a Speaker of the Assembly, and the strong Quaker chose Leviticus 25:10 for the occasion, where he had penned those words to proclaim liberty throughout all the land and unto the inhabitants thereof. The Declaration of Independence was approved in wording on July 2nd, 1776 by the Continental Congress, and on July 4th, 1776, the delegates voted to accept and declare Americans' independence from Great Britain. On July 8th, 1776, the Declaration was read in public for the first time outside Independence Hall, Philadelphia, accompanied by the ringing of the Liberty Bell. And on July 19, 1776, Congress ordered it to be engrossed with the script on parchment, and on August 2nd, 1776, the members of Congress signed the parchment. And as a footnote, the parchment of the Declaration of Independence was being signed by members of the Continental Congress August 2nd, 1776. Samuel Adams declared, "We have this day restored the sovereign to whom all men ought to be obedient. He reigns in heaven, and from the rising to the setting sun, let his kingdom come." On July 3rd, 1776, John Adams wrote his wife Abigail, "I'm apt to believe that it will be celebrated by succeeding generations as a great anniversary festival. It ought to be commemorated as a day of deliverance by the solemn of devotion to Almighty God." And as I was reading this came to my mind. Our founding fathers believed that God was to be supreme. Our independence was because of the goodness on June 22nd, 1962. How many of you ever heard this? Why wasn't it ever taught? Some of this, Sister Katie. But in June 22nd, 1962, Robert C. Byrd, you ever heard of him? United States Senator from Virginia, declared a lengthy message to Congress 2 days after the Supreme Court declared prayer in schools unconstitutional. At the end of his message, he quoted Thomas Jefferson. "On the banks of Washington's tidal basin, Thomas Jefferson still speaks. God who gave us life, gave us liberty. Can the liberties of a nation be secure when we have removed a conviction that these liberties are a gift from God? Indeed, I tremble for my country when I reflect God is just, and the justice cannot sleep forever." These words, Jefferson, are a forceful, explicit warning that to remove God from this country will destroy it. Fisher Ames, when he was a congressman from 1758, he was born, to 1808, was a congressman from Massachusetts in the first session of Congress of the United States when the Bill of Rights was formulated. It was Fisher Ames who on August 20th, 1789 suggested the wording of the First Amendment, which was adopted by the House. Now get this, in the 1700s. Congress shall make no law establishing religion or to prevent the free exercise thereof or to infringe on the rights of Congress or the conscience, excuse me. They broke the Bill of Rights. Fisher Ames shared his belief concerning the education. Should not the Bible regain a place in it as it once held in school books? Its morals are pure, its examples are captivating, and the reference for the sacred book that is thus early impressed lasts long. And probably, if not impressed in infancy, never take full hold of the mind. I think that's what we say, Joe. If you don't get them when they're young, you've done lost them. On September the 20th, 1789, in an article published in the Palladium magazine, Fisher Ames stated, "We have a dangerous trend beginning to take place," back in 1789, "in our education. We're starting to put more and more textbooks in our schools. We've become accustomed to putting little books in the hands of our children containing fables and moral lessons. We're spending less time in the classroom on the Bible, which should be the principal text in our schools. The Bible states these great moral lessons better than any other man-made book." That was in our government. John Jay, 1745 and 1829, was the first Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court, having been appointed by President George Washington on August the 12th, 1816. Jobin Jay admonished. Now, George Washington put him in there. 1816 is what John Jay wrote. "Providence has given to our people the choice of their rulers, and it is our duty as well as the privilege and interest of our Christian nation to select and prefer Christians for their rulers." How many of you ever heard this before? I wonder why. On May 17, 1829, John Jay was drawing near death after a life of serving his country. As recorded by his son, Judge William Jay, John Jay was asked if he had any final words for his children, to which he replied, "They have the book." Dinesh D'Souza said this, "But don't we have responsibility to the truth?" How many of you have heard of Dinesh D'Souza? If you haven't, you need to read everything you can about him. Shouldn't we lay out the facts of history and let our people make their own minds? The progressive answer to this question is no. Progressives detest the fact not because they are untrue, but because they don't fit in with progressive political interests. Facts constitute, as Al Gore might say, and I'm saying this by freedom of speech, is an inconvenient truth. So progressives have been working hard to come up with lies that can be passed off as facts. Progressives have a whole culture of contingent. Hollywood, the mainline media, the elite universities, even professed comedians to peddle their propaganda. From the show Madam Secretary to the front page of the New York Times to the nightly quits by Stephen Colbert, the progressive bilge comes at us continually and relentlessly. And you'll find this in the book Hillary's America 2016, page number 13 and 14. I have the book. So you might ask, what is a progressive? If you wonder. A progressive is one that identifies, and he's identified as a social or a political movement that aims to represent the interests of the ordinary people through political change and the support of government actions. I'm going to give you a footnote. Black Lives Matter is being supported by a political incumbent that hates President Trump. Has nothing to do with black lives. It's all about gaining votes. I may get in trouble for that. I'm sorry. When I went in the military, I made a vow to protect our country's Constitution. A lot of Americans won't do that, brother. I'm serious. It doesn't stop when I got out of the military. I'm going to tell you something else. And anybody's listening, if you want to watch the NFL, when the Black Lives Matter anthems played, you ought to walk right out. But what is a progressive? In the 1800s or 1890s, the movement grew into a political movement in what was known as the Progressive Era. Progressive ideals have evolved over time. President Woodrow Wilson was a member of the American Progressive Movement within the Democrat Party. Basically, progressives fight to change or erase what they don't like. Progressives are pulling down and removing historical monuments in an effort to erase history they don't even know. 57 historical monuments have been removed during the George Floyd protests so far. That's just in 2020. George Washington's statue in Washington Park was spray painted and a white hood put on his head. On July 2nd, I'll get back to this just a minute. But on July 2nd, 1776, from his headquarters in New York, George Washington issued this order. The time is now or at hand which must probably determine whether Americans are to be free men or slaves, whether they are to have any property or they can call their own, whether their houses and farms will be pillaged and destroyed and themselves consigned to hate the wretchedness from which no human effort will free them. The fate of unborn millions will now depend under God on the courage of this army. I'm going to put it this way right here. The fate of unborn millions now depend on people who stand for the truth. Our cruel and unrelenting enemy leaves us only the choice of brave resistance or the most abject submission. We have therefore to resolve to conquer. George Washington knew that if America was to have a future, she had to be dependent upon God. On July 9, 1776, Continental Congress authorized the Continental Army to provide chaplains for their troops. General George Washington then issued the order and appointed chaplains to every regiment. On that same day, he issued the general order to his troops stating, "The general hopes and trusts that every officer and man will endeavor to live and act as become a Christian soldier, defending the dearest rights and liberties of his country." See, the push of the progressives have lowered the standards in the military. How many of you remember, don't ask, don't tell? You remember that? It was a policy on military on service by gays, bisexuals, and lesbians instituted by Jefferson Clinton, Democrat. Administered on February 28, 1994, and lasting until September 20th, 2011. Then guess who comes along? Obama. Another Democrat, advocating a policy to allow gay personnel to serve openly in the forces. You see where we come? You remember what George Washington said? That our military men and women, our military, need to act like Christian soldiers. And this is far from what George Washington, in regard to Christian conduct within the military, meant. Is any wonder why they hate George Washington? The statue of Christopher Columbus was removed at Columbus Community College. Other statues of Christopher Columbus were painted with a hammer and sickle, Black Lives Matter, and fists and more painted on them. Do they understand the sickle and hammer is Russia, communism? Some of you may not know this, but the slave auction block was removed in Fredericksburg, June the 13th, 2020. Now this is all happening during the election year. It's a large stone used as an auction block for slaves. I don't like that part of history, but it's not a good history, but it's a memorial to the hundreds of slaves that were sold. Those slaves that were human beings, they had a name. And to remove that block erased each person that was sold there. Completely said they didn't even matter. They never existed. They never, ever mattered. I'm going to give you a foot down. How many of you have heard of Auschwitz? Birkenau. These death camps that millions of Jews went to. Did you know that what's left of them are standing because of the Jews that didn't want them destroyed? As a reminder of two things: what Nazis could do, and the fact of their relatives that went there and died as a memorial to them. To remove memorials is to remove people. We talk about, and some of you are familiar of the ones of President Grant. The ones of, I don't like the KKK. They want to remove Forrest, General Forrest. But for them to remove him would be to erase all the blacks that were hung up by the KKK. You see where I'm going with this? In a letter to James Warren, Samuel Adams, how many of you heard of him? Samuel Adams said this: a great dissolution, that's the process of making something slowly end or disappear, of principles and manners will more surely overthrow the liberties of America than a whole force of common enemy. While the people are virtuous, they cannot be subdued. But when they lose their virtue, they'll be ready to surrender their liberties and for the first external or internal invader. If virtue, that's behavior showing high moral standards, and knowledge, that's information of facts, are diffused, that means if those things are spread among great individuals, that spread or cause to be spread over a wide area or among a large number of people, among the people, they will never be enslaved. This will be the great security. But when memorials and history is removed, we're going to see America fall. Folks, I'm afraid that God is, and I think about this, I'm afraid we're going to lose it. See, God's blessed us with a beautiful country, a wonderful country. I'm glad that we were able to be here. But and I know I brought John Wayne up again, but he wrote a song. He never really sang. Okay, he mostly wrote songs and he said them. But he said this. He said, "America, why I love her. You ask me why I love her. Well, give me the time and I'll explain. Have you seen the Kansas sunset or an Arizona rain? Have you drifted on a bayou down the Louisiana way? Have you watched the cold fog drifting over San Francisco Bay? Have you heard a bobwhite calling in the Carolina pines or heard the bellow of a diesel in the Appalachian mines? Does the cold Niagara thrill you when you hear her waters roar? You look with awe and wonder at Massachusetts shore, where men who braved a hard new world first stepped on Plymouth Rock. And do you think of them when you stroll along New York City dock? Have you seen a snowflake drifting in the Rockies way up high? Have you seen the sun blazing down from a bright Nevada sky? Do you hail to the Columbia as she rushes to the sea? Or bow your head at Gettysburg in our struggle to be free? Have you seen the mighty Tetons or watched an eagle soar? Have you seen the Mississippi roll along the Missouri shore? Have you felt a chill at Michigan when on a winter's day? Or waters rage along the shore in a thunderous display? Does the word aloha make you warm? Do you stare in disbelief when you see the surf come roaring in at Waimea Reef? From Alaska shore to the Everglades, from Rio Grande to Maine, my heart cries out, my pulse runs fast to the might of her domain. You ask me why I love her? I have a million reasons why. My beautiful America, beneath God's wide sky. Folks, we are so blessed. We need to pass on our history. I gave you a little bit of a taste. But when our history is erased, we're done for. One thing, and I know this, and just, I know you've been seeing us carry firearms. Did you know the Second Amendment, you know what that purpose was? And it's coming to this. The purpose of the Second Amendment was to protect its citizens. Originally it was for a militia. But we don't have a militia, but it still stands true. The purpose of our carrying handguns is not only protect ourselves from those that might want to steal from us or to hurt us, but it's from the tyranny of a government that wants to be a government to take over its people. That's why we have the privilege. Some of you know years ago, and by the way, that was a Baptist principle. But it was some years ago, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, there was a church not too far from us that took those rights for granted. It'll never happen in a church. It's right down the street. I believe that was a church where the pastor said, we ain't going to have any guns. A gunman came in. People were killed. And from what I understand, it was not only people got killed, the pastor's daughter got killed. So when you see honest people with handguns, you think about this. We're trying to stand up for our freedoms in America. God is good. He's so good. Let's stand together, and as time goes on, you'll hear more and more. I think it's important for us to pull the flag down in the front down here, not keep it in the back. What's the song, brother?
575.
575.